Welcome to Elisabeth Hogarth Designs. If you're new here, this is my card making and paper crafting channel. I've had a break for a few weeks because, quite frankly, I ran out of ideas and inspiration. Social media can be quite hard going at times, so I felt like I owed it to myself to have a break. But I'm back now with a great new collection and ideas from the team at Consortium. This is the first in the designer series, which is called Through the Trees. The concept is slightly different to their other collections, but more about that in a moment. I particularly like this collection because I enjoyed working with Melissa Lowry's Over the Hedge. I like the images and the flora and fauna. So without further ado, let me run you through this idea behind the designer series. Fans of Craft Consortium will know that they already have premium collections, and these will generally include 12 by 12 paper pads, 6 by 6 paper pads, a whole wealth of stamps and embellishments, washi tapes, ribbons, sequins. These are their premier collections, and they are illustrated by really high class designers such as Clettery's Gray, Hell's Coupledick, you've got Katie Hackney, Melissa Lowry has done a few, and we've also got a very talented artist called Lindsay Kelly. So you've seen these 12 by 12 papers before, and you've also seen the essential ranges, and again you've got the 12 by 12, the 6 by 6, and more recently the 8 by 8. So you've got a great range of wood style papers. My favourites are the ink drops in all the colours of the rainbow. This particular one is a new favourite. This is organic. And you've also got things like the retro summer, which is more muted colours, a bit more painty effect, and then coming within those two styles of the premium and the essential, we've got the new designer series. So make no bones about it, the quality is as good as the other two ranges. However, within this particular designer series, you're going to be able to find everything included in one 12 by 12 paper pad. The first difference is that there are no longer any images on the front cover, which for me is a real bonus because it means I can keep my paper pad in one piece and I'm not having to cut into the images that I would rather keep for future reference. I'll show you what I mean here. You remember every single video when I show the premium collections, I say I can't cut into the front cover. So for me, the fact that I've now got 4 pages of toppers in really good sizes as well is a big bonus. I also like that the images have a black background because when you come to fussy cut, it makes a really arty finish to the cutouts, which is a little bit different. So I like that we've got all of these pages now to play with, and I can spend a few happy hours just fussy cutting out the papers. And you'll see throughout the book that there are a few really neat ideas, which means that you can just buy one of these 12 by 12 paper pads for under £10 and get all of your crafting out of one book. You've got the plain pages on the back, which again I like because you don't have to decide between the patterns, and then you've got the glorious images that we know and love where you've got your scrapbook style pages, or you can cut out the middle and use it as a photo frame. But just as a front cover idea, I think that is a stunning piece of artwork. You've got simpler designs on the back, and then I'll quickly run you through the other pages. So you've got 30 sheets of paper and you've got 20 designs, and they're all double-sided, and you'll see a range of patterned papers, then patterns with the larger images, and then again you've got your core background, plain colours that will mix and match with all of the patterns and all of the toppers. So again, that's another bonus for me. I really like the colourways in this collection anyway. I love the new characters that Melissa Lowry has designed for us, and I really love these types of pages where we've got borders and cutouts that can be incorporated with the rest of the design. So you can see how you can take one colour and how the blue and the greys mix with the greens and the richer oranges and reds. I think it's a very versatile way of paper crafting, and I have to say that the quality of it is just as good as any of the other Craft Consortium products that we are lucky enough to use. So now you've seen the papers, let me show you some of the projects that I have made for the launch. I began by using the 12 by 12 papers. I wanted to cut down those images to create a front cover, and I really like the end result of this. So you can see one 12 by 12 paper has used the back cover and the front cover. I really do like the tone of black behind the bright colours. I think it really lifts up the designs. This is one of the Spellbinders glimmer plates that I have incorporated. If you haven't seen those videos before, then I've got 2 or 3 of them on my channel, and I will be making far more this year. And then I've made a frame album, so I've got a die that makes up frames, and then all I've done is taken a Hessian style ribbon and attached the front to the back, and then I made a concertina style insert with a couple of strips of A4 card. I used craft card because I like the idea of it with the green papers. So I then made a set of tags to go within the pockets. I mentioned earlier that Melissa Lowry also illustrated Over the Hedge, and these are my stamps from the original collection. You'll recognise Henry Fox, and there's also the owl and the hedgehog, which would actually work really well with Through the Trees, but we've got some different characters for in Through the Trees. We've got the rabbit and the raccoon, and so I made my tags using the stamps and the Sizzix set of sentiments that comes in very handy. So you can see the whole range here of, I used scraps of paper from the 6 by 6 papers, and then I used the toppers that I had already taken from the 12 by 12 papers. So the tags have a whole range of scraps of paper, toppers and stamps, and then I made the pockets in the same way, and then I went back through and I used my scraps to make extra tags using the zigzags, and then I took more of the larger toppers to add extra embellishments to the pockets that I'd added to store the tags, so it works on the front and the back. So you ended up with a set of 8 tags, yeah, 8 tags, and it's a really nice gift idea, and you can see just how well all of the beautiful papers work together. And then when you fold it up, you can slot it back into the box and tie it up. Then I made some fairly simple cards using the toppers. I started off by cutting out all of the images from one of the pages because I wanted to see just how far it would go. So I took out all of the florals, and then I layered them up. I used a woodware stamp with the flower stems, but you could easily draw those on yourself. And then I took the tree page where I fussy cut out the strip for the base of the card, and then the bunny rabbit just chasing through the flowers. I love the colours of these flowers. I think you could use them at any time of the year. They are quite autumnal, but I think that you could use them throughout the year. This is the second card that I made. Again, this time I used the 6x6 papers, and I went back to that glorious scrapbook page, and then I took out the centre of it to create a frame and layered it up onto one of the tree pages and added the toppers within that, and you can see that they make a really cute little family. Just to say, the pages are mostly matte, so unlike with the premium collection where you get embossing and glazes and things, you do need to add your own, but most crafters these days have sparkle pens and gloss drops and that kind of thing. These were made using the leftover squares of paper from the first couple of cards that I made, and so I layered them up onto some of Craft Consortium's glitter card, and I also used the organic ink drops just to add that touch of green. So they're fairly simple cards, and then I went back to the 12x12 papers to make some coordinating envelopes. So you've got the two little foxes, you've got the very sweet raccoon. I added lots of glitter to the centre of the flower on this card. It works really well. Another coordinating envelope which really showcases all the glorious patterns. This card is really simple but ends up being one of my favourites, and I've just used the bees and the flowers with the small ditzy flower envelope, and then you've got the sweet little rabbit popping up from the corner of the card with the floral and fauna envelope. So fairly simple cards. I think it's a beautiful range to work with. So if you'll allow me to, I'm going to show you a few more cards that I've made in my new craft studio. It's actually the room that I began in 5 years ago, and the children have gone and come home again, so I'm thrilled to have them home, but it has meant that I've had to give up a lot of craft space, a lot of pieces of furniture and craft items. But it does mean that my studio setup is slightly different. I don't have the luxury of an extra desk now, so I'm hoping that these videos will still work for you. Some of you may prefer that I've got a different setup, and I'm going to try and show you a little bit more of how I make the cards rather than the end result, because you never know, you might pick up a few tips or two. So I'm going to begin by running through the papers that I've already used. I don't really want to dip into the paper pads anymore, so I'm just thinking to myself what I can do with these. They're not really scraps, they're bigger than scraps, but we'll see what we can create. I had in mind that I wanted to work with the craft card because I thought that the colours would work really well with the craft rather than the white card. So I'm using some of the rectangles here and trying to build up like a grid effect. I'm a visual crafter, so I tend to move things around and play with colours and ideas rather than having a fixed idea and measuring when I start. So initially I was going to use the craft card and these papers, and I'll quickly run through that I cut these down so that they were in theory the same width but not necessarily the same length. But I ended up moving on to a slightly different card design. I cut the papers several times, moved them around several times, and this tends to happen when I'm in the design process. I have to keep moving things until something appeals to me. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. In this particular case, it wasn't working for me, so in the end I swapped colours. I moved from the craft card to the white, and then I was distracted by the fact that I'd got the raccoon on the back of the paper, and I thought that that would look nice at the base of the card. So I then adapted the style again, brought in some more of the rectangles and laid them out slightly differently. I used a mix of measuring by eye and my tea ruler, and even then I ended up with a gap that I wasn't terribly keen on, so I added another strip. In hindsight, I should have moved all the pieces again, but these things happen, and so when I moved then on to adding the toppers, I used a slightly off-centre floral design to try and trick your eye into looking around on the other side of the card. So then I took the toppers that I'd already cut. You can see just how many toppers and embellishments I was able to get from, I think I used one sheet of the 12 by 12 and one of the 6 by 6, and I was able to use them in all of these projects. So to finish off the card, I added the flowers using wet glue and silicone glue gel. I like using little bits of the glue gel to add extra interest and layer up certain elements, because then it trains your eye around the card. I then decided that I wanted to add another little bit of embellishment, so I was picking some of the Craft Consortium pearl embellishments. I've got a whole rainbow of colours of these now, and you're going to be able to buy more of these on their website throughout the year. And then sticking with the colour theme, I brought in a range of gold and green and bronze and clear stickles of your glitter glue. You can use anything like that just to add a few extra details to the finished card. Moving on to card number 2, I used another white card blank, and I decided to cut down 4 squares 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I used my corner rounder to rounder off the 2 opposite sides, so 2 sides are square, 2 sides are cornered off. And I thought to begin with that I would just curl these and then stick them in place, but they weren't sitting very well. So this was part 2. I added a centre point mark, and then I used some sticky pads to add some dimension to the 4 squares. While I'm sticking on the pads, I would love to know in the comments below if the quality of this video is as you like it. I've had to work in a slightly smaller space, the lighting's completely different, and I'm hoping as the video goes on that you'll still be able to see everything in good enough quality. Once these squares are in place, I then will go back to the 6 by 6 pad, pick another piece of paper. I was trying to stick to scraps, but I felt that I needed the combination of the 2 size papers and the colours just to bring this card together. So this floral pattern I used several times. I think it's one of my favourites from the whole collection. Those were cut down to 2-inch squares, and again 2 of the opposite corners were rounded off with my corner punch. and then I stuck down the centre part only after curling the edges, brought in the flower, and then added some more of the stickles before finishing it off with another one of the sweet little bees and some glue gel. It's quite a simple card but effective. I then used the scraps of the scraps and I cut them all down to a 1/4 inch wide. It didn't matter how long they were, I just kept all of the strips the same width, and you'll see why that makes a difference to the next card in a moment. I love this card design. You will often see me using this for TV samples because you can use the scraps up and you can also show the many colours within a collection. You do need some plain and some pattern to really make it work. Originally it was like a log cabin design, but now I'm a bit more freestyle with it. There's no rhyme or reason to the way that you lay the things out. You can just keep turning and have all the pieces go in the same way, but I like the effect of it being a little bit more organic. So I'm turning the card as I go, and I'm trying to get a mix of the patterns and the textures and the colours so that the pattern makes you look all the way around the piece of card. They are quite hard to explain, but they are great fun to make, and personally for me this is one of the best ways to use my scraps. At this stage you begin to wonder if the whole card is going to come together, but believe in the process and keep going. If you run out of scraps, then simply turn over the card and give these strips a mini paper cut, and then you can use these strips to fill in the gaps on the front. But you really want to try and keep the pattern going by mixing and matching all of the various designs. But the magic really happens when you cut away the back and you turn the card over. It never ceases to amaze me how clever it looks. So then I'm going to add this to the base of a white card. I'm going to bring in another layer of green, and for this I'm going to use the organic papers again. Great set of colours, very versatile. They are magical to use with your leaf dyes, and I like them because of the mix and match of the greens. They are very natural and organic, so it's a great name for the papers. So to add layers and depth again, I add the green with glue, but I use foam tape to lift up the log cabin patterned paper. Then it's time to bring in the toppers again and try and add some interest to the front of the card. So I'm going to use these 3 adorable animals, and again I'm going to use a mix of wet glue and 3D glue gel just to add some interest. And then I'm going to bring in a few sequins and a sentiment. I love these Tim Holtz sentiment strips. They're very meaningful, and you'll notice that I add the sentiment in the top third because it draws your line. It makes you think there's more to the card than there is. And then we've got the sequins that quite often could take me a good 5 to 10 minutes to place, but you want to try and get a wonky triangle. In a relatively short amount of time, we've now got 3 more cards using the scraps, and these will sit nicely alongside the original projects that I showed you. I think Through the Trees and the Designer series are a great set of papers for crafters of all abilities. I'm sure that you will enjoy crafting with them as much as I have. Please do come back and join me again soon for more crafting fun at Elisabeth Hogarth Designs. Take care, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.